Hello, everyone. Today we're going to discuss Stalinism and the three contradictions of imperialism. With that, I'll turn the subject to Tristan.
All right, thank you. So, first, I want to get this out of the way and address a misconception that I've heard a lot. So, there's a misconception going around that Stalinism is pretty much no different from Leninism, and Stalinism is just Leninism put into practice. I don't believe this to be true. And the reason why I don't believe this to be true is because I can point out, several different developments that Stalin made to original Leninist theory. Like, for example, socialist commodity production. That wasn't a component of original Leninist theory, at least the way that Stalin conceived socialist commodity production. So I just want to get that out of the way first, that Stalinism is a separate philosophy from Leninism, and it does develop upon Leninism. It's not just Leninism put into practice. All right. Now that that's out of the way, I want to talk about the three contradictions of imperialism that Stalin identified. So, as we discussed earlier with the series on Leninism, imperialism is an economic relation, and it's not like simply when you invade countries. So because it's an economic relation, it will impact the domestic economy of any given country that is affected by the imperialism, whether that is the country where that imperialism is stemming from or the country that is being imperialized. So Stalin, he identified three different contradictions that would come with this economic relation of imperialism. The first would be that imperialism would push the working class of foreign nations to rebel against capitalism and become Marxists. Now, the reason why Stalin thought this is because imperialism, as we discussed earlier, is the highest stage of capitalism. So workers, you usually resort to, social democracy or labor unions or cooperatives or, simple non-radical means to
achieve their object.
achieve their
agenda.
Their agenda with capitalism and kind of get their way in capitalist society. But as capitalist society gets more powerful and capitalism gets more powerful and capitalism eventually evolves into imperialism, these traditional ways of workers
democratic way of workers will be suppressed.
So the traditional ways that workers will get their way and get their say in capitalist society won't be viable options anymore. So they'll be forced to seek more radical options, like, for example, Marxism, communism, socialism. So that is the first contradiction of imperialism that Stalin identified. The second would be the conflicts of different imperialist nations. Now, the thing is, we all know there's a limited amount of land on Earth, and that means that for imperialist countries, there is a limited amount of land to imperialize. And once a certain nation is already owned and being imperialized by one nation, that means that other imperialist nations can't really get to it, or at least have a hard time getting to it. Now, this will cause conflicts between imperialist nations, which will weaken the power of imperialist nations because they're feuding with each other and devoting resources to that feuding. Now, that will cause weakness within the imperialist nations because, of course, they're devoting their resources towards that feud and not towards an effective suppression of worker uprising. So these feuds between imperialist countries will lead to their downfall. Now, the third and final contradiction of imperialism that Stalin identified has specifically to do with pre-industrial nations that are being imperialized. So, of course, there are no real pre-industrial nations now. There were in Stalin's time.
In the 30s.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, by what I mean by pre-industrials, I mean by like agrarian. So there's no like industrial factories or anything like that. It's all just like farmland, and the country relies mostly on agrarian means to sustain itself. So the thing is, the class before, as we discussed in the Marxism series, the class that relies solely on agrarian means to sustain itself would be called the peasantry. And the peasantry is not really inherently revolutionary like the proletariat, aka industrial workers, are. But Stalin, he pointed out that, hey, once imperialized nations are imperialized, that means that finance capital would be exported to the imperialized countries. And this finance capital would kind of force the peasantry to develop, right? So this forced development would allow the peasantry to be transformed into proletariat, and would therefore be, the peasantry would therefore be transformed into the revolutionary class of proletarians. So the third contradiction of imperialism kind of points out that in order for imperialism to function, peasants would have to be forced into revolution. So that wraps up the three contradictions of imperialism that Stalin identified.
Thank you for watching. Thank you, Tristan.